Well, Neighbours continues to come to its end, and it's kind of limping to the end, unfortunately, as it continues to drop in my rankings. It drops again for June 2022, coming in at 6th place. And I'm sure I mentioned this before, but I do the Australian air dates. I watch the Australian air dates, and I'm pretty sure Neighbours is ahead in the UK. Couldn't even end it in the UK by now, I'm not certain. But yeah, I'm doing the June 2022 for Australia. There will only be 1 month left of Neighbours. I will be doing for July. But yes, it comes in at 6th place because I just don't feel like it's the most exciting ending. And it's not the show's fault. Clearly, I feel like the show was gaining momentum up until the show found out it was being canceled. And then it wasn't going to be able to find a new home. And then the stories kind of faltered from there. Like, I was enjoying the build to Zara being this, the new kind of teen villainess on the show. But she's barely even on the show anymore because the show's kind of barreling towards an end. But we'll talk about some of the stories here. One of the big stories, and kind of the only story that at least has a little bit of excitement, has been the Corey isolating Harlow, and Harlow being basically kidnapped by a shady organization that Harlow's mother was involved with. And Freya basically tried to save her. Didn't go to plan. Freya was tied up. It was David who kind of made the save, if you will, in this storyline. This was the only storyline with a little bit of stakes, even though it was pretty certain. I don't think anybody felt like anything was actually going to happen to Harlow. I didn't. And then when Freya got involved, I assumed that they were eventually going to be saved. From that, though, we have Freya and Levi kind of working things out. It's a couple that works for me. I mean, the show's been winding down for months now, and they've been kind of coupling everybody up and trying to see which couples are endgame. I feel like there's going to be a lot of couples that are endgame. One of the couples that might be, but probably shouldn't be, is Therese and Paul. But Therese is also back with Glenn, which I think is the better fit after Paul made Glenn reveal the truth to Kiri that he was and is Kiri's father. The fallout from that's kind of basically been Kiri not having anything to do with Glenn. But Glenn and Therese have found themselves close again. I'm all for Glenn and Therese. We also got Therese's mother come to town, Estelle. She's Therese's estranged mother. And Paul and Estelle have been getting to know each other, which Therese hasn't really liked. But the story hasn't been, it's just not like must-see TV as Neighbours comes to an end. I kind of was hoping that there would be like one last super dramatic story for the show, and I guess that was maybe the Harlow kidnapping story, but it was just okay, unfortunately. Now that's the big reason why Neighbours has faltered in my ratings as of late, as it kind of limps to an end. I feel like this has kind of been how Neighbours has been for years now, though, even though I felt like they were finding momentum at the beginning of 2022, even being better than its neighbor Australian show Home and Away at the beginning of this year. But it's ending kind of like Neighbours has been for a long while now. They try and tell more mundane stories, but it's just not that interesting to me anyway. Another big story, I guess, has been Hendrix, who needs a lung transplant because of that fire that he had to save Zara and Mackenzie from. That kind of brought Carl and Susan back together, who were fighting after Carl lost all of their money to Montana with that whole Fashion Week shit. But Hendrix has been backlashing against the Rodwell family because their daughter is the one that helped set that fire in the first place, and he still is blaming them. But this has brought Hendrix and Mackenzie closer again. You know, they've been a cute young couple on Neighbours, who I think long term could have had some maybe decent stories. We saw with the Zara story that people could have caused problems for this young relationship for the foreseeable future. But with the show coming to an end, I think this is the right way to cause some grief for this couple, with Hendrix needing a lung transplant, kind of messing up the lung transplant that he almost gets because he kind of breaks protocol. But they also went to Sydney to be with Hendrix's family for a while, and they plan on getting married. I'm recording this before the last few episodes of the month of June for Neighbours, so they could have already, and probably did already, have their wedding maybe. But you know, I like the couple of Hendrix and Mackenzie. I always have. I think they're going out the right way with this couple. I am assuming Hendrix will eventually get the lung transplant and they'll have a happily ever after. So all in all, I didn't really talk about the reveal that Nicolette's the one that found out that Glenn was Kiri's father, or kind of figured that out. Paul's the one that figured that completely out and then made Kiri know the truth about Glenn to kind of put this wall between Kiri and Glenn after they end up getting closer. I talked about last month how I was glad that Glenn, this kind of short-term past character that was only on for like a year or two, coming back all these years later to have his own story, I've enjoyed. But I think the main issue is just that Neighbours is more on the boring side. It's kind of similar to Emmerdale, where there's not a strong story anywhere that makes you want to tune in, even with the show coming to an end. But I think it's the best the show can do. It got canceled on pretty short notice, I would think, because they write so far ahead. And so the transition from them finding out about this cancellation is probably why we are getting, first of all, we're getting multiple episodes a day, where it's usually just one Neighbours episode a day, but now it's been multiple episodes a day as they just barrel towards this final month. I still think the final month might end up being on the stronger side. I hope so. I was expecting Neighbours to like end in July in like the top 3 at least, but I don't know if that's going to be possible now. But hopefully at least the top 5. But for June 2022, Neighbours comes in number 6 in my rankings in one of its final month on air.